it should give you a choice to name it.
Oh, the subcommittee. Okay. Do you know where I name it?
Hi, Olivia.
Live on YouTube, but you have to exit out of that webpage.
Okay, we got it.
That'd be good.
Thank you.
All right, I'll check and I'll let YouTube know. I'll let you know.
Okay. Thanks. Wait.
Yeah, she earlier today, do you think she's getting this? I'm like, I think she's pretty close.
I'll know when you stop coming to the live
I
meetings.
think you are pretty close. Well, we
Hey, everybody.
Hello. We're working out some technical issues here.
Oh. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Charlie.
I first wanted to apologize to you for filling out part of the bike sidewalk audit.
It was,
That was
you.
me.
I
It
was
was
like,
me.
what? Yeah, I changed it because I disagreed with you.
Okay, well, I was encroaching on your territory, so you should feel free to change it to whatever.
It's okay. I'm just glad to be done.
Yeah, I saw your note. I thought I was doing this, and initially because it was close to the proximity to where I live and where my stuff was, I figured I'd just do it, but you picked it up, and so there was a little confusion. So I wanted to apologize for what I did. Is I went through, and some of the stuff you could do without actually being on site, like the proximity to schools and things. And so I went through and I did that, and then I was going to go back and take a look at it. And then the day that I went out and actually did the on-site survey, you had already filled it out. So I said, wow, I was a bad boy and I should apologize to you.
Oh, that's why it was just partially filled out. I was like, what? Because
Yeah.
I did the opposite. I went out, I got all the stuff, and then I came back and put it in.
Okay.
All at once. So
Okay.
yeah, it's good to have.
I'll try and behave next time, but I can't promise it.
Okay. It's better to do, double up than have something.
Well, it's good to have different opinions about it too. I think that's good.
Yeah.
All right, we are live, so I'll have Jenny go ahead.
Okay, are we on the right? Okay, I was waiting because I wasn't sure. It went live a few minutes ago, but I didn't know if that was the right one.
I was able to link to the right YouTube account.
Okay. 1 second, sorry, I gotta find my language here. Okay. Hello, everybody. Good evening. I'm gonna start out just by reading this paragraph. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held virtually. Members of the public who wish to comment as to an item on the published agenda must submit their statement or question in writing to elizabeth.zimmerman@skokie.org, and all properly submitted statements or questions will be presented and read during the relevant portion of the meeting. Written comments also may be submitted by email to citizencomments@skokie.org, by mail to Village of Skokie, attention Elizabeth Zimmerman, 5127 Oakland Street, Skokie, Illinois, 60077, or via the village's drop box located public entry to Village Hall. Okay, that being said, welcome to our April meeting of the Sustainable Environmental Advisory Commission. The first item on our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from our March meeting. Is there a motion? Motion to approve? Nobody.
So moved.
Anybody? Okay, Lisa and Jim All those in favor of adopting those minutes? Hands,
Aye.
the hands have it. Okay. Next up is our old business. First item there is our sidewalk gap evaluations project that we've been embarked on this year. Which we've submitted all of that over to Liz, and I'll let Liz take it from there.
Sure. Before we begin that, I didn't know if everybody sees the new face on our
Oh,
board.
right.
James Johnson. James, do you want to just introduce yourself and maybe say hi, and everybody, we can go quickly around.
Everybody, it's really nice to meet all of you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm one of the new trustees on the village board. We don't have appointments or anything like that yet to different commissions, but regardless, I'm here to support the great work that y'all are doing and amplify what you're doing. Yeah, I care a lot about sustainability, so I'm really excited. Yeah,
Great.
it's nice to looking forward to meeting all of you.
Thank you. Maybe we can go around real quick. Jenny, do you want to just introduce yourself, and maybe if we could talk about what subcommittee you're on too, that might help James.
Sure. Hold on, let's turn that off. Jenny Grossman, we have talked, text, email, whatever. And I am on the waste subcommittee and also a little bit on the transportation committee. I am the waste subcommittee currently. There's only one person on it. Lisa,
You're next on my screen.
go to you.
I'm Lisa Godkin. I've been on this commission, I think, since 2015 at least. And I'm on the water subcommittee.
Jim?
Hello, Jim McNellis here, and I'm on the energy subcommittee. I've been on the commission since probably about the same as Lisa's 2015. So welcome aboard, James.
Olivia?
Hi, I'm Olivia Mahoney, and I've been on the commission since about 2015. I'm on the water subcommittee, and welcome you and congratulations on your election. Great.
Andrew?
Hello. It's nice to, first and foremost, nice to meet you. I'm Andrew DeConnier. I've been on the commission for, just shy of 10 years now. July will be 10 years officially. And I am on the transportation subcommittee.
Charlie?
Welcome, James. Congratulations on your election. You have big shoes to fill. We really enjoyed and benefited from Randy's presence on the commission, and he'll be missed. He's a good guy, and we had a good relationship with him. But we're looking forward to working with you or whoever the board appoints. I've been on my name's Charlie Sachs. I've been on the commission, I don't know, 2014, I think, somewhere around there. My big interest is cycling. I'm a year-round commuter to my job downtown when there's not a pandemic. And when there is a pandemic, I ride around and generally check out other neighborhoods. Recently started up the Skokie Bike Network, which is a citizens group that I'm trying to organize to promote cycling activities in and around Skokie. And so I have an active interest in the transportation, obviously, but I also have solar panels on my house, and I've done a lot of stuff with the solar energy stuff. And we've been guerrilla food composters for some time, and we do some composting as well. So I have a number of areas that I have interest in. So anyway, this is a fun thing for me to do, and I'm glad to be part of it. It's a great group of people, and welcome aboard.
Michael?
I don't know how to top that, but I'm Mike Gershbein, and I am on the energy subcommittee.
And Rick, you came in a little late. We're just introducing ourselves to one of our new trustees, James Johnson.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome.
you.
You want me to tell them who I am?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
The answer come out tomorrow. No, that's not. I'm Rick Moskowitz. I used to own A+ Pest Control in Oakton. I just sold it. We did green pest control, and we sold it to Smithereen, which will do green if you want them to. But we kept our A+ natural enzymes natural pesticides, which we sell and make some. We mix things that haven't made for us, and we're considered to be the manufacturer and distributor. And they're very safe and environmentally safe. I've been in the group how many years? Many. I know 7, 8 years or something, 6, 7 years. So anyway, here I am. Good to meet you.
You too.
That's great. Thank you, everybody. So as Jenny said, we had wrapped up. We got all the evaluations from the 5 people, I believe, that 5 commissioners that went out on site visits. I think the information is just so valuable. We're going to be using that for years. I did block off some time today to kind of go and check off, some of those sites where maybe tree issues were of concern, or just to kind of get a sense of priorities and those types of things. So that's a work in progress. I think Max and I were talking today. Our next step is I'm going to reach out to engineering, see if some of the thoroughfare projects that were identified are going to be included in any of our bridge projects, like with Old Orchard, some of those things. And then we're just trying to identify some wins this year of places that sidewalks can go in. Jenny's area, I would say, is the most challenging for me right now. It's just all residential, but it's near school. There's a lot of trees. So that area is going to take me a little bit more time to get through. I went down a few blocks today and I thought, I need a break from this. I'm going to have to come back.
I feel the same way every day when I walk around this area.
Yeah. So that one's going to be a challenge, but I was able to identify some good starter locations to bring up with engineering, and we're just going to keep working on it. We're going to try to get some in this year. So thank you for all your work. It was a lot of work, and like I said, we'll be using that data for years. So that's about all I have to report on the sidewalks.
Okay. Next on our old business is spring greening, which I guess is you as well.
Yeah, it was a really great event this year. We had a record of 1,084 cars, and we did that all in one less hour. So the event was only 3 hours instead of 4 hours, and so the lines were moving really well. Did anybody attend from the commission? Did anybody go through it? Rick did.
Rick's gotta hang there.
Yeah, the venue. Did you think the venue worked out well? We liked it.
I wanted to volunteer, but I just couldn't time it. But I brought stuff to shred paper. So I saw the lineup, but they were moving very fast, though. They were doing well.
Did it help to have less stuff? I mean, I know you just did the electronics and the shredding and not all the other stuff. Did that help?
So I've never been to the typical event. Max is shaking his head. He can come up and talk a little bit, maybe.
See, at one time they used to have at Niles North, they had you inside. I had
Not for
actually,
recycling.
but I had a table there. They actually had
Yeah.
displays.
No, but for the outdoor recycling, they had multiple different stations.
Yeah.
Like you could bring multiple things, and this one was pared down quite a bit to just the electronics and shredding. If I
What I was told is they used to be backed up for blocks.
Yeah, it used to be backed up quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it used to back up a long way. I think the biggest improvement was just the Westfield lot we were able to use was so long. We were really able to maximize the internal queuing lines.
Mm-hmm.
So without having to have all those other stations for all those other recycled goods, we were able to create multiple lines on site and really get very efficient with it. So it was a much longer site than I had envisioned going into it. So we were feeding the traffic in from the north off of Old Orchard, which didn't leave us very much on-street queuing space. going into it, I was pretty concerned that that was going to create a traffic backup. I know, Charlie, you've experienced the traffic backup on Lawler, and it
Right.
could back up from Niles North, south, all the way to Gulf Road. So we're very concerned about it. But we were really able to maximize it off street. So that was a great improvement. So I don't know what the future holds for the event in terms of going back to adding in all those other items. But it really turned out to be a remarkably efficient site.
You think if you had all those extra stalls or spots set up, would the space work since it's narrower maybe, but longer?
I'm not sure. The thought that some of us had that day was, perhaps one way to do that as we looked across the street at Niles North's lot sitting empty over there was that maybe the way to do it in the future, if we were able to use Westfield's lot again, is to do the same sort of thing with the electronics and the paper shredding in the Westfield lot. And then if people had additional items, the fire extinguishers and the prom dresses and the bicycles and some of those other things, to send them then to the Niles North lot. Because you're right, the lot is so narrow. I'm not sure we could turn cars internal in that lot and then send them to those probably, 16 other stations of things that they could recycle. So that's sort of our off the cuff thought about maybe how we could do that. So,
Okay.
But the site turned out great.
Cool.
One thing I wanted to mention is, rather than having to wait once a year for electronics recycling, I don't know how many people are aware of the Douglas Center and the fact that they're on Main, and I don't know if it's I don't know the people that they help. They're either I don't know if they're disabled.
On Oakton.
Is it Oakton? I think it's Maine.
Howard.
Howard.
Close to
Thank you, Howard. I
live
Howard.
right
Yes,
down
I
the
was saying Maine, thinking Howard.
it's Howard.
Across from the water reclamation place. So anyway, mentally disabled, those types of people, and they basically the gist is they take all kinds of electronics for recycling, and they have they train people to take them apart and do stuff. So I just I am constantly inheriting clients' computers and stuff like that, and I just took them 8 or 9 computers, and they were thrilled to have them. So for people who are looking for year-round electronics recycling, that's and they're on Swank's website as well.
Yeah.
So they're a good reference.
There's a Swank site at in Des Plaines as well.
I think there's one in Glenview too. They have limited hours though.
Yeah.
So Douglas Center is basically 9 to 5 place. They might want you to call first, but yeah, just all kinds of electronics too. Like they'll take the cables and everything, which is really.
I think also there is, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if it's a year round, but yeah, I think the Glenview site was mentioned, and I think on Winnetka Public Works on Willow Road also takes back some materials. I don't know that it's an all year round site, but I do know that they're open at least for part of the year. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the Public Works facility in Winnetka is another option, I suppose.
Right. Yep. So good event. People are very excited to be there. Kind of interesting.
Cool. All right.
I'm glad we were able to pull it off this year, and I'm glad it was a success. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, people stock up stuff all year for it, so it's good that we still could do it.
Yep.
Okay, our star is not here today. The next thing on our agenda is the Earth Day composting video, which I don't know if any of you saw, but it's very well done. Like, not just saying that, it is. It's really informative and has excellent acting by our own Bob Render.
He wasn't nominated on Sunday. I was really disappointed.
I mean, the Academy, they're unpredictable.
Maybe it was released too late or something. I don't know.
That's probably, he didn't get in time for that film. Yeah, I know it was out there in the village email. I saw it on Facebook. Well, I put it on Facebook. I saw other people had it there. So, just another way we're trying to get interest in compost education of our, publicizing our collective resource program. Yeah. Liz, is there anything else you wanted to talk about with?
Well, I just wanted to jump back to spring greening a little bit because the numbers were so great for what we collected.
Sure.
So we collected 33,684 pounds of electronics and 35,000 pounds of paper. I didn't have any context for that, and so I reached out to Swank to see what we've done in other years. And the electronics is kind of like right in the middle there, but again, we had a shorter event, and the paper was 3 times our normal collection, and I personally lifted probably several hundred pounds of that paper, so I'm proud of that. that taken. So that's incredible. I mean, we had to rent an extra truck, and we used all the trucks, and so that was a great event. And then with the Earth Day, I just checked this afternoon. We've had 350 views so far of the video, and so over the coming weeks, I would expect to see, a month or two to have like 1,000 views or something on that. So that was a worthwhile video, and like you said, Bob did a great job. I thought it was good.
Liz, do we ever get data on how many subscribers there are? Do you get that updated?
I do, yeah. So before the video went out, and then we also had collective advertising signs at spring greening this year. That was, so they kind of did a little blitz with the video and that. So we had about 200 or 205 accounts before that week. And then they did get an additional 6 signups that I would attribute to the work that we did. Their customers generally stay for a long time, and I would expect to see a few more jump on yet. So I was just telling Max, it's difficult to sometimes to get momentum going in these programs, but it's important to keep trying, and it's certainly a start, and they were really grateful for the work that we did.
How many single family accounts are there? Is that something you guys know? Is that a number that you?
Oh, that I don't know. Right. I can ask her if she has.
Oh, I mean, sorry, not with collective resource, just people in the village, households. I don't know how you call them, but people who put out their garbage that aren't multifamily.
Yeah. 16,000 or so.
Okay. So got it. Work on that percentage there a little bit. Okay. Thank you. All right. I think we can move on to our new business. The first item there is a greenhouse gas inventory, which we had talked about last month, and it sounds like we've got some updates from Liz and/or Max.
Did you want to talk, or you want to? Okay. So we've been interviewing. We picked 3 vendors that were ranked highly with Northbrook's work with RFPs, and we interviewed those 3 vendors this last month. We have pricing proposals from 2 of them, and we're waiting from the 3rd vendor, who's a local vendor. So we're hopeful that pricing comes in competitively, because it would be nice. They have a lot of Chicago connections, and that sort of thing. So the work is moving along. We're basically just waiting for that last proposal, and we can certainly share that information with you once we have that.
All right. Sounds good. Next is.
Can I back up a second there? So is there money that's allocated for this? Because I think there was some question about where the money would come from, and there was some source that was identified. So it sounds like we're moving ahead with a process of soliciting proposals, and we're going to select a vendor, and then that will be recommended to the board, and then there'll be a contract let and all that. It sounds like that's happening.
Yeah, we most likely, the pricing's coming in better than what we had anticipated. So we most likely will not need board approval for the vendor. It should be well under $20,000.
Okay.
We do have a funding source. I've been working on an electric aggregation program that's just, it works under a different model than the first program. Everything is moving along on there. Essentially, what this program does is it identifies the accounts within Skokie that have a lower cost to serve. Generally, that means condos where the HOA is paying for the outdoor lighting and the air conditioning and things like that. So there is a margin of profit at those properties. It's not enough to be able to bring that profit back to the consumers, back to the residents. And so what's been happening regionally is people have been setting up with a retail supplier, and then Skokie would essentially get a civic grant. And the popular thing to do with that civic grant is to look for energy reduction projects or sustainability initiatives such as this. So.
Okay. So we're operating the assumption this is going to happen, and we're just looking for someone to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're pretty confident we can get this done yet under this 2021 plan. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Okay. We had started talking last month about moving towards our next plan for the next 5 years. And in figuring out where we want to go with the next plan, to look to other municipalities and see what they've done, see what kind of things everyone's doing, or what things that are just a little more innovative that only some places are doing, just to figure out what would work for us. And Emily had put together a Google spreadsheet that Liz shared with the meeting info, that's got some people have filled in their reviews of the plans. There's about 10 of them on there, I think, maybe a little more. 13. Anyways, I don't know if all of you have had a chance to look at those, but it's a good start on a lot of plans. And there's, anyone can put in some notes or thoughts, adding on to somebody what anybody else has done. Yeah. Anyone have anything they found while you were looking around? Lisa?
Yeah, Appleton, Wisconsin, which is a town that has a very similar population to Skokie's, has this amazing thing that they do with their plan, in that they put in there the target, the goal, and then the target, and then the actual action. So and the action, and it goes by year, so exactly. So they'll say something like, we want to reduce emissions, and that would be the goal. And the target, they set targets each year, and one of the years would be like increase sidewalks, so that people have other ways of getting around, which would reduce emissions. And then under action, you see, in 2014, we increased our sidewalks by 2 miles. And in 2015, we increased it by this amount. So you see it right in the plan, all the actions that are taken. They said, we want to change out they want to save on electricity. So that was the goal. And the target was change all their lighting in the whole city to LED. And then when you see under action, it says, in this year, we changed out 250 lights. And in this year, we changed out this many. So it's just, I just loved that, that format, because then anyone looking at it can see the actual steps that are taken. And another thing that they said right in the beginning of their plan is, we are going to be a model. And there's a lot of things, and that they're going to be a model for living sustainably, the village. So in their own building, their own buildings, they're trying to change everything to LED, to the LEED regulations, and they're just trying to lead by example. And that kind of goes to what I was saying last meeting about how, well, if we're going to promote this collective resource composting, all the Skokie events need to be composting, need to be doing that. And so I just thought it's it's an easy to read plan, and you can see actual work happening.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it's the nice thing about it is I feel like there's it sounds like anyway, extremely high degree sort of transparency. And like you said, it is a very concrete sort of plan year by year, rather than perhaps something that is more abstract and it's at some point in the next 5 years. Or I was looking at Morton Grove's plan. There's actually is a 10-year plan. They just adopted their plan on January 25th. So it's a plan that runs from 2020 until 2030. And I think sort of similarly, the nice thing about it was that they have on each page outlined what they've done between 1980 and 2019 and what they plan on doing from 2020 till 2030. I'm not sure that there's that level of detail, but I think it is pretty well designed. And I think maybe that's something we should consider too, highlighting what we have done already alongside what we plan to do and how we plan to continue in those other categories. I did note sort of in the spreadsheet, if anybody looked, I did note that there's not really a specific target. So like greenhouse gases, for instance, they don't say, oh, by 2030, we'll lower it by 50%, for instance. I'm just, but yeah, I mean, I think there was a fair amount of detail also, and sort of that putting it in context with what's happened already and what they plan on doing. And also some of the strategies, for implementation. They have a section that's actually all about strategy for implementation too. So, but it sounds like it's similar.
I forgot to mention one really cool thing. Sorry, about Appleton. They modified their rules on getting bids from vendors and things like that, so that it's not just the lowest bidder, but they're allowed to take into consideration sustainability as well. So when you're looking to government contracts, and that's I think huge. I don't know that much about what Skokie looks at, but most municipalities look at the lowest, like who can do it for the lowest price, right? So I think that's something that would be amazing if the village could do that.
I took a look at the Aurora plan, and it was very comprehensive. It actually is, it was put out in 2019, and it revises an earlier plan. So it's similar to what we're doing. And in the plan, they talked a little bit about the process and how they first conducted a thorough review of their current plan before they started to develop a new one, which I thought was good and something I hope that we can do. And they also talked a little bit about the process of getting input from residents and how they conducted that so that it is more open. And I thought that was a real strength of that plan as well. But it didn't get to the level of specific goals as Appleton's did, and I wish it had, because I think that in the new plan, it would be really wonderful if we could become a little more concrete and specific about what we're trying to do, even if it means we have fewer goals. And because the current plan is really well written, and we have lots of great goals, but it's really hard to decide, or to figure out what we've done and what we should do. So I think we need to assess that and make some choices.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I know when we were working through the plan and got the first draft back, that was an issue, that there's not a lot of specific. On one hand, it gives us the ability to gave us the ability to figure out how we wanted to take the plan, but it also leaves us to figure out what we need to do, which I think should be more of the what goes into the plan. And then the plan is there to say, this is what we need to do, because then a lot of the stuff is maybe in different departments and for staff, and that way it can kind of not take care of itself, but it can be picked up by many different areas and just go with it. It's not just up to us to always be putting out initiatives from the plan.
I was also just going to add, before I forgot, two things that I kind of thought were interesting when I was looking at the Morton Grove plan and just in general what occurred to me. One of them is that they also talk about economic development, which I thought was interesting that they had that section specifically, because I think often there's this sort of false dichotomy, like you either choose the economy or you choose the environment. And I think that's really a fallacy. You can create jobs, as I think we all know, and you can think about the environment. So, and the other thing is, also, I don't know if there's anything that would fall under that category here in Skokie. We don't have anything like a waste transfer station or anything like that that I know of. However, I did read an article about the waste transfer station. I think it's on Church Street in Evanston, and they did some studies around that. And that just kind of brought up the issue of sort of environmental, like as far as environmental justice items are concerned. I don't know if that's anything like we want to think about, address, if there's anything really that's particularly applicable here that comes to mind. But so I don't know what anyone's thoughts are on those two things. I mean,
can I interject real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So, like what Andrew was saying is about like the fallacy of with the jobs things or the economy and that stuff is that, remember, with sustainability, we target all three: jobs, economy, environment, society, and stuff. And that's why targeting two or even one of the other aspects is why we come up with these issues and everything. So, as I've said before, that is what the definition of sustainability is, almost to agree with those three aspects interaction. So with all thinking and planning aside, is that we don't want to ignore any of those aspects, and they all have to come into factor when making decisions.
Yeah, I would argue that sustainability is an economic development strategy. We're at a point where I don't think we can ignore environmental considerations and expect there to be a sustainable economic outcome as a result. So I think Andrew's right, and I think Chris is right that it is pretty much one and the same. I think it challenges us to think in terms of what economic development means within the context of ensuring sustainability, both environmental and economic sustainability. I would say that there are two things. I like the idea of these plans, some of the plans being very specific and having definitive goals. Although the ones that I've reviewed sometimes are overwhelming in terms of like what their specificity is. It's almost too prescriptive. One of the things I like about the plan that we came up with in 2016 is that it was fairly broad and it allowed for initiative across a broad array of areas. So I think some sort of balance between identifying very specific goals and prioritizing, as Olivia mentioned, maybe having fewer goals but more prioritized, and then allowing for more general goals in other areas would be a good mix.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That, like the Aurora one, it has a lot of goals. A lot of the goals seem a little lofty without getting into a lot of the nitty gritty like the Appleton plan does. So to find a balance somewhere in between there. I think the Morton Grove plan does a little bit of that more.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly thought that, like I said, I think there is value in a number of these plans, certainly. So I don't want to say, that there's one plan goes about it the right way, because I think the plan that goes about it the right way is obviously the one that proves to be most effective for the community that you're talking about. But I do think, like you're saying, the Morton Grove plan could be kind of a good example of the sort of thing that we want to shoot for. I don't know. My 2 cents.
All right. Was there any other, I know Emily, this is her area and was looking at.
So what is the objective of this? What are we trying to accomplish with this review? Is there some point where we're going to bring this to a close? Is there some conclusion? What are we trying to accomplish with this review, these plans? Just generate ideas?
Time-wise, I'm not sure if we have sort of set that up yet, but, and we don't put together the plan, that's a staff thing, so I don't know if we've been given a timeline or time frame. But I think the idea was figure out how we want to craft our plan and see what other municipalities are doing. If there's, we can continue on the goals that we've set in the last plan, updated them for, things that we know that need to be done, but we had discussed that maybe this was a good way to kind of figure out what other things we can be doing. And if there's a better way to have our plan look, or to incorporate things that other towns are doing. We're not gonna spend 6 months reviewing other plans, but just some time just to get some ideas. I don't know if there was anything else that behind that, Liz or somebody else.
Yeah, I guess I kind of go back to when I wrote my thesis, right? You sort of start with a lit search, and you just, start with that broad reading and see what you like, and you make notes, and that's a good starting point. And then, we had talked to the vendors about a public input process, and we're waiting to see what some of the costs on that are. That is the item that often drives up the cost. Maybe that might be above our budget. Maybe there's a way that the staff can do some of the work, and they can help us organize a survey that's quantifiable, that we're able to prioritize what the community wants. That buy-in is really important. And then, the third component is we want to see what comes back on this greenhouse gas inventory before we get too far along on our plan. And so I just kind of see us in this, sort of researching phase right now as we wait for the greenhouse gas inventory, as we review other plans, and then, all that's going to converge. And Max and I need to do some more work on figuring out how the plan's actually going to get written. But those 3 components are going to be a part of the plan. That's the goal.
Can somebody remind me when the current plan ends?
This year.
So is there not supposed to be, are these things supposed to basically take, the next one's supposed to start right when this one ends, or does it really not matter?
Probably in an ideal world, the next one would start in 2022, but I would hate to push out a plan that doesn't take into consideration, like the greenhouse gas inventory. So, we're doing our best to do concurrent work, to get the next plan out as quickly as possible, but also to not rush it to the point where we're not really reviewing what we need to do and what we need to prioritize.
I mean, there certainly are things in our current plan that still need work, so it's not like we're out of things to do.
I don't feel a particular need to have a plan in place when the end of 2021 happens. I mean, I would rather take the time to come up with a good plan.
Yeah, this is a little bit skipping ahead to the next agenda item, but when Olivia and I were looking at water and what kinds of things we wanted in the new plan, we realized we don't know what has been done at all, we need a report from the village about what they've done on the current plan. We don't have, we're talking about specifics, or we don't know, explore intergovernmental opportunities for water management. That's one of the programs. Has that been done? What's going on with that? Review the village codes for opportunities to promote the use of permeable surfaces. Like, what codes are being considered? We need a report on all of these things and what goals have been met and what goals haven't. And, if they haven't been met, we should reevaluate. Is that still a priority? Why haven't they been met? I don't know if that's the same for all of the subcommittees. Were you guys able to figure out what's been done and what hasn't been done?
Lisa, I'm right there with you. I agree entirely that we need, I think there was a very nice presentation that Max and Liz did to the village board about what has been accomplished in the last several years regarding sustainability, but a report that is specific to the plan, yes, I would agree with that. And I know the village likes to do their, annual or semi-annual, water quality report. Maybe one of the things we can strive for in the next few years is a annual or semi-annual sustainability report where we routinely report on progress towards these objectives.
I was just actually, Charlie, I think I sent you something of the sort, like just a general sort of design of the sort of thing that I thought it could potentially go into the next sustainability plan as well. It was a sort of prototype, if you will, table, like a rough draft of the sort of thing that highlights what has, been achieved out of all of the goals and, where things stand. So basically where we're coming from, where we are today, and where we plan to go with these different items. And I think if you could come up with some sort of table like that, that's something that would be useful to us, like what we're, I think, all saying, and it would be useful to incorporate into the plan as well. So, and I think, I'm not sure, I know, Charlie, that I sent you a table of sorts just to get your thoughts on it. And I think Max or Liz, I think I sent you something of the sort too. And I think we sort of discussed that a little bit. I think I heard back about it. So
yeah, Andrew, we did use that as a template for a PowerPoint. And remind me, did I send everybody Max's PowerPoint presentation that he did? Oh, did everybody receive that, or should I send that out again? Because Lisa, that's a good starting place to review. Just kind of refresh, because it is difficult to remember everything. I'll send that PowerPoint out again in case I didn't.
Yeah, just as a general comment, we accomplished a lot in the last 5 years. We did a lot of stuff, and the village staff did a lot of stuff. You could argue that there's a lot of stuff we didn't do. The greenhouse gas inventory is one that's been highlighted, but I think there's a lot of stuff that we accomplished, and we shouldn't shy away from reporting on that.
Yeah, I think so too. But when I look back at the overall goal for water, it's reduce the amount of water that is consumed in Skokie and ensure the quality of our water supply. And I think we all need more information on what has been done in this area. Frankly, I'm clueless. I'm on the water subcommittee. So it would help a lot to get more information to us first, and then eventually to the public, so that they can see what the commission and the village are doing in terms of the environment. And of course, that I think that holds true for all of the goals. And I don't think anybody expects that we can achieve all of this, even in a lifetime. But there has to be some progress shown, even if we look at its kind of small steps, but at least it's moving forward.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember when we brought in the consultant, he talked about the combined sewer, the separate sewer system. So we had that talk about, all the chlorides. That's certainly something that we're doing for water quality. Max has put in a lot of work on Aquify. We've mentioned that one before. As far as water conservation, we're putting sensors in around town to identify leaks earlier, to do a lot more with water conservation. And so it's I think a lot of it is oftentimes linking the action items to the goals is hard. Sometimes to identify which category goes in and so forth. So I'll start with doing the PowerPoint, but we can certainly put together a more detailed progress report based off of Andrew and Charlie's table that they had sent out earlier.
And actually,
I think some of the, and it's maybe some areas of the plan, it's more applicable to that. Things like Libby was talking about, those are things that people, intergovernmental agreements, etc. People don't really know about them. Other areas like, putting up bike lanes in certain areas, those are things that are concrete, that are more easily either identified by the public or just stuff that we know about, we're involved in. But there are a lot of things that go on a staff level that we're not involved in. This, they're just things that happen. And so as we're formulating the new plan, to get an understanding of those things that may have happened we just don't know about, so that we don't keep, either modify them as a goal going forward or not keep,
Sure.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Right.
Yeah,
Right
and
with you there. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not sure if you know, we have a stormwater task force that's been meeting right now as well. And so, that ultimately prevents overflow, the outfalls and overflows into Lake Michigan. So that's definitely a water quality, thing that we're working on right now too. So there's definitely stuff going on, but we just need to articulate it better, I think. So we can work on that report. Yeah.
I was just going to say,
that would be great.
Interrupt anyone, but I did notice also in the latest edition of Muskokie, it mentions, I think there's 3 green alleys or something like that are scheduled to be done, I think, at some point this year. I noticed that's among the projects. So that also would be kind of stormwater management, runoff related. So I thought that was a positive thing.
Yeah, and then one more comment just on the plan. Oftentimes things pop up, right? Like there'll be grant funding for EV stations, or SoulSmart, probably wasn't in the plan, but that came up and it was a regional effort, and so sometimes we have to leave, I think, some room in the plan for these other just initiatives that come up that we didn't plan for, right? That it's a regional effort, but the opportunity is there, and a lot of it is about timing. And so I would just kind of make that point where, to some extent, we would want to leave some flexibility in the plan to seize those opportunities.
Yeah, that would be my caution about being overly prescriptive, because there are things change and the priorities would change, and we don't want to set ourselves up to being like, why didn't we do this? Well, because there was a new opportunity that presented a better outcome.
Also, we're advisory. We don't make rules, right? So we only advise the village. So.
Yeah, I would think our role here is to advise the village on an appropriate plan, but it's the village that adopts the plan. So that would be up to James. We'll tell James what to do, and then he'll tell us what he's going to do, and then we'll all be happy.
That's how it works.
Yep.
Okay. On that note, we had sort of touched on this last month, but as we're doing now, that in order to see where to go, we need to see where what we've done. And we've primarily been working on the subcommittee level. That's how we've divided the plan up, how we've divided up tasks, etc. And so I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to talk with their subcommittee, but to kind of give each subcommittee a chance to talk about, you know, where they stand. So we'll start with water because that's first. So Lisa and Olivia, if you want to cue us in a little, or just talk, whatever.
Yeah, we again we reviewed the plans here, and Lisa took notes. Lisa, do you have those available?
Yeah, I mean, there
Go
were,
ahead.
yeah, I mean, but the main, when we looked at the plan, there, we just had a lot of questions about what, as I mentioned before, you know, we're not sure what things were done because we don't know about all the stuff that the village is doing all the time. So putting that aside, we're wondering a few things, like we think that the free rain barrels from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, those were really good. We don't know if that program is still going on. We think that we should be providing information on the most suitable landscaping for the local Skokie conditions. I mean, we've done that before. Olivia arranged that native plant presentation. We think there should be like a preferred plant list, and that Skokie should be, those should be the plants that they should be planting when they're planting things. You know, the plan talks about the exact times when watering's allowed, and it's not enforced. So we've talked about that a lot of times, how it's not enforced. So maybe there's other things that could be done about providing information on the best times to water and to minimize the evaporation and promote sustainable lawn care. We talked about the effect of household cleaning agents on water, how it's polluting water, and how Appleton, actually, all their buildings, they said they are using all green. They switched in 2010. They use all green seal stuff in their, and that's leading by example. I have no idea what the village of Skokie uses to clean their buildings, if it's all green or not. We see them, the village of Skokie, driving around in those huge water tanks, watering plants. And we think it might be better if they have like a drought, native plants that are drought tolerant to avoid having to do that. And we also thought there could be around Village Hall with the native plants with a signs that explain like what the plants are, just a little itty bitty sign that says what, you know, what plant those are. And then so it would inspire residents to put those in their gardens and in their landscaping. We've been talking about this for a long time. We think we need another place for people to discard their drugs that they need to throw out. As far as I know, there's only 2 places in the village, and it's the police department. And then there used to be one in the basement of Village Hall, which I don't even know if people know about it, but we've been talking. I don't know what happened. We talked to somebody from the library, and I don't know what happened with that, because the library or park district buildings could be a great place for that. That's an education issue. Most people still throw their stuff in the garbage. Yeah, Olivia, did I cover it?
Yeah, of course, again, there are more worthy goals listed in the plan, but these are the ones that rose to the top. And we also think these are the ones that are most attainable, again, so that we can show some results, we can measure and see the results. And also there are areas where the village could really show leadership. And not that it doesn't, I don't mean it that way.
Right.
But give it a higher profile. All the environmental issues, the village has an opportunity here to really elevate all of these issues to a much higher profile. because of course the issues are so critical. And as Charlie said, we can't, we all have said this, we just can't ignore all this anymore. And we have to do things that really make it visible that the village is taking a really active role in helping to save the environment. So those were the goals, but again, there are others that are possible, and we're just not sure in the new plan, how many to include, and maybe have a few each year over the 5-year plan, or how to organize them and how to become really specific. But those are the ones that stood out to us at this point.
Okay, thanks. That was really informative. Sorry, Andrew, you want to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, as far as the drug disposal, the drop-off thing, that is listed, although I think it's always beneficial to sort of review and update as needed the recycling and disposal program brochure that I designed in at the end of 2019, and I think went out in early 2020, like January, February. But it does mention, I think, both the police department and also the health department as options that I can recall. If there are other options, that would be also, I could update the brochure, for instance. So.
The problem with those two places is they're not visible. I don't know how many people go downstairs in Village Hall where the Department of Health is, or how many people go to the lobby of the police department, but people go, and when it's visible, it's there. If you walk into the library or one of the Park District buildings and you see, oh, there's this big thing and it's for drug disposal, then you're like, oh, the next time I come, I'll bring my, that expired Benadryl that I don't need anymore. I think it's, if it's out of sight, out of mind, but if it's there.
Yeah,
I think
some issues with it having to be at the police department, I believe. I think the drug boxes have to be monitored. I'll check into it though. But there's a lot of prescription medications that are, people kind of want. And I know that there's some stories out there, even at the, like the spring greening type events, they require a police officer to be there for drug collection and so forth. So we'll certainly look into it, but that particular one, I'm not sure that we'll be able to do one in an unsecured location.
That's what
they're also selective about their drugs. In that I've tried to drop them off and they've rejected some. It says support down the toilet.
Are you talking about the village? Because the village
Yes.
will not take controlled substances. You have to take those to the police.
It's not, no, they weren't controlled. I mean, those,
I'm
those
talking
have
about
got safely under lock and key.
like a Ritalin or something. If your kid takes Ritalin, you have to take that to the police.
I brought in a hodgepodge in a bag and they took some and rejected some. Point being, they have a control there saying what I can and can't drop off.
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, a number of years ago, I don't know exactly when, I think I have sort of the even minutes somewhere stashed away from before, but this is something that we actually at one point looked into back when I think Deborah Shore, who's, on the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, she's a commissioner. She was at one point also on the Environmental Commission here. And this is something that we sort of speaking of subcommittee, if you want to call it that, had looked into, and I did a little presentation on at one point, and that is, there are issues with like controlled substances, as you were saying, Liz, that I think it is a challenge to sort of, people have medications that they want to dispose of, obviously, but it also needs to be properly sort of supervised. So I think the law being what it is a little bit challenging.
I have to say that having recently gone through surgery, I was astonished at how many pain-killing and powerful pain-killing drugs I was prescribed. And I've got a whole drawer full of stuff. And also in going through that, realizing how many people think that just flushing it down the toilet is a normal thing to do. And I think that's a communication that we need to get out. No, don't flush your drugs down the toilet. But what Mike brings up, I think, is something that I would like this commission to really take on, and the complexity of recycling or the complexity of disposing of things is a huge impediment, a huge disincentive for people to do this kind of stuff. I mean, we've talked about plastics and, what plastics can you recycle? What can't you? Does it have food on it and all this kind of stuff? This is a huge problem because we're committed and actively involved in this. And for us, it's confusing. You can imagine someone it's not really on their radar. They're just doing their day-to-day things and they've got other things to think about. And all of a sudden you want to do the responsible thing. And then you go to the police station or someplace to drop off your drugs and you're told you can't do it. Or you take your paint somewhere and you're told, well, there's some that you can drop off and some you can't, or there's plastics. And it's like, after a while, it's like, I don't know what to do. And it constantly changes. I think that's something we need as a commission to say, okay, let's tackle that and see if there's a way we can come up with a solution for that problem. But I think in terms of the drugs and the water, we need to get a communication out. There needs to be a publicity thing, whether it's from public health or from this commission or from, MWRD. Don't flush your drugs down the toilet. That's not the appropriate disposal of medications.
Is there any way we could partner with CVS and Walgreens and at least put signs up somewhere? Don't flush your medicines down the toilet. Go to these places where you can drop them off. Just something as simple and direct as that. I don't know, but I agree. It's very complex, and people get very discouraged, and they just kind of give up.
Liz, I don't know if you know the answer, but have we ever done something like that where we partner with CVS or Walgreens to do some kind of education campaign?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I can look into. I think private partnerships on, some of the stuff is just going to be really critical. Like the plastic bags right now, that really got better this year. I mean, Mariano's, Target, Jewel, there's like 4 stores that now just readily offer the plastic bags. So let me touch base. So Swank has a new website. They just launched it a week or 2 ago. I need to update our village links. So if you're on our page, if you see any links that don't work, let me know, but I'm going to go through that. They've got a new webpage. It's probably worth reviewing that. They have a lot of private resources out there that provide recycling for, batteries and just all sorts of different stuff. They have that, it used to be the A to Z directory, but I think now it's pretty cool. You can type in what you want to dispose of or recycle, and a map actually pops up now of what your options are. So a lot of times it might just be kind of pushing that Swank link, and then that's a catch-all for a lot of a lot of questions. Another thing that we can do, we have a lot of good ideas on maybe news articles you want to push out. Maybe we can develop a marketing calendar for, when it makes sense to do certain articles or certain e-news. If anybody has any ideas on that, I can put those on my calendar, and I can just push out, little blurbs when they're timely. So like with Libby, you're mentioning the sprinklers, I can push that out in July or, June, when it makes sense. So.
Yeah, hopefully we can. That's always been a challenge, is to have space in communications materials for what we want to put out there, since that's our only avenue other than the website, but that doesn't push into people's spaces to get our message out. Because if we have the message but we can't get it out, what good is it, I guess?
I don't know if there's a way. I think we discussed this too, although I don't know if it would run sort of afoul of anything. It would be nice, and I think this had come up previously, if we could provide some of that information on our webpage and then at basically have like Skokie's Going Green or whatever, some sort of little thing on the homepage that's sort of a permalink to ours, and that kind of advertises the commission / the village's sustainability initiatives. I think if there's like a prominent link, maybe people would be inclined to go to our website, and our webpage could have a lot of that information. So aside from obviously New Skokie or Skokie use, or possibly it would be nice if we could also do something with pharmacies and at least provide some sort of information, even if it's a printed thing that comes with the medication. But I think also if we could have some sort of prominent link about the Sustainability Initiative / Environmental Commission that would draw people to our webpage, and then our webpage can have a lot of that info too, that would be potentially a good thing. I don't know what any thoughts are on that, but.
I don't know how easy it will be to get that kind of prominent space, but it's a good idea, hypothetically.
Yeah, I don't want to step on anyone's toes either. I don't know if it would be an issue in terms of other commissions, et cetera, but.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else water-wise to share? It sounds like we touched on everything. Okay. I'd say we move on to the air subcommittee, but we talked about the greenhouse gas inventory, and that's really all that the air subcommittee has done. And I say subcommittee, it's Liz and Max, because there really is no active air subcommittee. So we can do energy next.
Yeah, so energy still needs to meet, but having gone through the inventory of all the other sustainability plans from all the other communities, one thing that comes to mind is that we can go through that list and start developing, what we think our updates need to be for, our section of the next version of that plan. So that's just one thought that comes to mind. Liz, I don't know if there's any Soul Smart updates with regard to, going for gold, but Mike or Chris, any other additional thoughts on anything energy-wise?
I have a side thought. I mean, it has to do with what Charlie was saying, which is we're constantly discussing what a mess recycling is in this town. And I'm also reminded of that when I'm running down the bike path into downtown Skokie, and I see the big recycling bin at the end of the path, which is filled with probably 2% recyclables. That I don't know I don't know which subcommittee recycling fits in, but I mean, that thing seems like something that's primed to be re-examined at a village-wide level.
What do you mean?
We constantly talk about what a mess recycling is in this village. I mean, everything from what Charlie was bringing up, unless I'm missing something that doesn't really fit into one of our subcommittees. Am I not thinking that straight?
No, it's waste management.
Who's waste? You are? Okay.
Well, no, but you are right. It's something that we definitely have tried to work on, but
I'm sure you're doing a good job. But I just wanted to make sure. I think as far as a priority goes, this seems to echo again and again about how challenging it is to recycle, and it just gets more challenging when it should be getting easier. But obviously that's not my subcommittee, so I shouldn't be bringing it up. But echoing Charlie's thoughts.
Okay. If there's nothing else on energy, we can move over to, speaking of Charlie, transportation and Andrew.
Well, on the transportation side, I want to first thank everybody for participating in the sidewalk audit. That's fantastic. I mean, that's a good example of it's kind of flies under the radar. We don't think much about sidewalks, but that kind of audit and that kind of perspective is really important, and it has a lot to do with how accessible the village is in terms of our neighborhoods and getting around. And so I want to thank Liz for putting that out there, and I want to thank everybody else for participating in that. I found it was fascinating because in my neighborhood, I've been riding down a lot of these streets, particularly east of Crawford, where a lot of these streets have curb walks, and I never really even thought about it. And many of these streets had been resurfaced, and the curb walks were just replaced as curb walks. And I don't know if anybody ever thought about putting in sidewalks, but I thought that was fascinating to actually think about what that would be. So that was very healthy exercise, and I think it was a good example of how we as a commission can contribute to these initiatives for the village. And I think it was a stellar example of our participation in this. So I'm grateful for that and appreciate all the work that everybody put in. On the transportation side, I'll speak a little bit for Andrew's interest in the whole transit side of things. You know, even with the pandemic and all the craziness that's gone on and the disruption in transit, we still have the Dempster Pulse line has funding and is on target to be put in place. So I think that'll be an important transit facility that Skokie will benefit from. So I think that's a good thing to highlight. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the North Shore or the North Suburban Plan that PACE has, and whether or not they follow through on some of those things with the rerouting. I think there were some important changes to the reroutes, which I think were positive. And we'll see what happens with that. And we'll see what happens with the infrastructure spending that is currently under consideration in Washington. On the bicycling side,
can I ask you something about mass transit?
Sure.
Have you seen any numbers as far as over the last year, what the pandemic has done, and do we have any sense of if that's going to change anything?
So the pandemic, I think generally, I can speak generally, it's devastated mass transit in terms of ridership. I think like Metra is like 10% of what it was. I don't know what PACE is. I think it's been a little bit more moderated with bus, because a lot of bus riders are essential workers and they continue to ride, but it's been completely devastating for mass transit. I think it really changes the paradigm of what mass transit has to think about. And my impression, and I certainly haven't done any like in-depth study of this, so I would not quote me as a source on this, but my impression is that we have no idea what the impact is going to be coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about this in terms of COVID. I mean, once again, coming back to recycling, you know, when you look at our big initiatives from a couple of years ago, it was like reusable bags, getting rid of plastic bags, and then we hit a point where you couldn't actually bring in your bags, although that seems to have loosened up. It's like, you know, what point can we go?
Yeah.
You know, full speed on some of these initiatives? Because I mean, I was at Whole Foods today and trying to decide whether I could use a reusable produce bag, and you know, I just don't know the right thing to do. And maybe in 6 months it ends up not being an issue, or a year we're just going ahead with this stuff anyway.
I was just going to add that I did think I see, don't quote me on this because I don't remember the exact figure, but I thought that it said something like, and if it was like 80% reduction or something really like just a huge amount at the height, especially of the pandemic. So I think you are talking about massive sort of drop off in transit use across PACE, Metra, and CTA. And I think that a lot of it too is they might have to rethink some things. I know that some service is suspended or else is operating. Like I think they're at 471 and 472 in Highland Park, I think. I was just looking through it. I was curious to see what's going on. And in Highland Park, I think they're operating on Saturday schedules because Saturday schedules are enough for the current demand. And I think that's probably going to continue, to be impacted for some time because some employers, I think, are going to continue remote work for at least a little while, possibly. I mean, obviously you're hearing about remote work being a sort of permanent feature for many employers as well. And whether that's appealing to them because of reduced overhead, or obviously employees want flexibility or concerned about returning to the workplace, or whatever it may be. So I think work from home is potentially to some degree here to stay, so that I'm sure is going to continue to impact transit and may result in them having to rethink service levels and other plans that they may have had pre-pandemic. So.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, it's, yeah, the world is different now than it was 12 months ago.
Well, the good part about it is, though, that they've discovered that viruses can't stay on surfaces like bacteria does. So that they're loosened up in that way. You go to, even though you're wearing a mask in the grocery store, you could push a cart. They're not spraying out the carts down every time. So they're not as worried about it, they discovered.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, I went ahead and I working with the two other guys I know in Skokie, and working with a loose community of people. I've started up this group called the Skokie Bike Network, and we're really trying to organize around promoting better opportunities for cycling and in Skokie. So we're looking at things like how to have a presence in infrastructure projects, when they come up, and they're early planning and letting people know that these are under consideration, and to articulate a particular voice. I think the Crawford Avenue rebuilding project was a good example of, there was a public hearing, and we were able to get the word out through the Evanston Bike Club that this was happening. And so there were a number of people that spoke, were present, that talked about the interest in making that more amenable to biking and walking. I think part of this is prompted by my experience, where I would be at meetings around Skokie and people would approach me like, I like, you're the bike guy, right? Well, I suppose I'm the bike guy. I don't think there's an official designation, but I'm not the only person that has an interest in this kind of thing. So I've been trying to, connect with other people. And part of it is to share some information. I think there's a lot of, recognition that Skokie does a lot of good things with bike infrastructure. But there's also, I think, a need for a voice that beyond a particular small group of individuals, but a more broader voice that says, yes, this is important. It's important to make biking and pedestrian access a part of the way Skokie is thought about, and to organize those voices so that there is some cohesion there, because I think a lot of people have an interest in biking, but there's also some barriers to that with the major arterials, and some of the, people feel they can bike around the neighborhood, but getting to and from destination. So part of the point of the group is to share that information and also promote biking for economic development purposes, for example, and also to have a perspective that is shared among those groups. So.
Have you seen that the dock-free divvies are out and about?
Yeah. The
that would seem
e-bikes.
that I don't know how. Oh, I didn't even see that they're e-bikes. I thought they were just regular. Okay, yeah, because it would seem like that would free. I don't know how they do contracts with different towns, but it seems like getting rid of the dock would free up this as an option for more places. I think from what I remember, you weren't supposed to take those outside of a certain zone when I've used them in other towns. Don't know how that applies here. All I know is that last time I was riding down McCormick, I saw one of them, and I saw one another time, just locked up wherever.
Yeah, I see the e-bikes when I'm riding on the Channel Trail. You'll see the e-bikes that are there, and there are other locations in Skokie. Even though Skokie doesn't have divvy, there are divvy bikes that you'll see around in Skokie. So that's the world from the transportation subcommittee.
Yeah, Oh, I was just gonna say, and I am still working, as I think I emailed you, I'm still looking at that PACE document as well, Charlie.
Yeah.
You were telling me about the sort of the transit design document, some of the sort of guiding principles, et cetera. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So still working my way through that. Haven't had a chance to look over the whole thing yet. But
Cool.
Okay. As Mike hinted at, the last subcommittee is waste management, which currently is just me. Since the beginning, we've always talked about recycling, how to increase diversion rates, how to get recycling, how to get people recycling more. I think the issue of receptacles in public places is something we definitely can do something about, but I see it as a different issue than what people do at their house, because when you're, in your house, it's easy. You're disposing of it some way, one way or another. It's just about where you put it. But when you're out and about, people are just lazy and put things in wherever. They don't even pay attention. They're not even in the mindset of we don't think of it that it's such a big deal to put it in this can versus this can, but people just don't. If we had, I think, better infrastructure, that's too big of a word, but I've traveled many places where they have, and it's not just, mostly other, like you go to Canada and anywhere you go, they have these big waste collecting things. They separate for all the different things, and the holes are specific to those types of paper. But in a lot of these other places, it's also the mentality is there, whereas here it seems to still not be the majority thought that you should try to endeavor to put your waste in the right place. I've always thought that if you put it out there for people, instead of just having the two big cans that you open up and look the same, if we've got in public spaces, if you've got those kind of facilities to put stuff in, maybe people will do a better job. I don't know if that would really happen. But on a household level, I don't know if Liz, if you have data on how, we always talk about this every year, how diversion rates have gone up and down. And I know in the past year, people are doing a lot more things that have more waste. You see a ridiculous amount more of boxes that people have, Amazon boxes or just stuff that they're ordering. So maybe that increases our diversion rate, but it's kind of a false positive because people are just wasting more. So if we're recycling more, it doesn't mean that we're not throwing things in the garbage. It just means we're consuming more things that are recyclable.
Yeah, the solid waste tonnage has gone up significantly. We get our recycling numbers a little delayed. We get those quarterly, so we don't have the full trend of that yet. But we're keeping an eye on it. But a lot of it is just work from home. It's so hard to kind of piece that out, right? Of like what people threw out at work versus working from home. But our Skokie rates have definitely gone up with the pandemic. That's for sure.
And we've been ordering in a lot more food wise, and the amount of stuff that ends up waste stuff that you can't recycle is just insane. I would have to think that that's having some effect.
Yeah, I know commercial waste is down. So but it's difficult when you're just that one kind of piece to have that overall picture of overall waste of if that's gone up or down. But our household waste is definitely increased. I'd say by about 3,000 tons this year.
Makes sense though, but maybe office buildings are gone way down, so doesn't People are wasting more.
I was also just curious, as far as public sort of receptacles in various areas, downtown Skokie, whatever it may be. How many of those are there, like recycling receptacles, like widely available? Like what is the number? Do we know? And is there any sort of increase in recycling sort of attributable to that? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I know that we've got the rough number of garbage cans, but I don't think we have that many recycle facilities out there. I think that's room for improvement, Andrew. I don't think I have data on that, but that's something we could start tracking.
Because, yeah, I know that in at least one instance that I can think of, there's a suburb that I think as part of their streetscape improvements, new signage and all of that sort of thing. I think they also, that's part of it as well. So I didn't know if that's something that can be sort of added on, or if there are any areas that are sort of up for a redesign, whether that could be incorporated and whether that would help or whether that has happened already and we've seen improvement where that's concerned. So I'm just kind of curious in general.
I can't recall seeing many public recycling cans around downtown Skokie or other such areas. I could be wrong. I don't walk around that much, but I know that one on the bike path just sticks out in my mind because when they ordered it, they made it look kind of so nondescript and like it fits in. Whereas somebody who's looking for a recycling bin, they want something that looks like a recycling bin that has like a hole for cups, and they have this specific look. And I always go by that thing, and it's like full of trash, and there's no way anybody looks to do it recycling. But so that in particular is one where it specifically very subtly says recyclables on the can, but I don't see a lot of those around downtown Skokie either. Not that it would make any difference because people use them as trash cans. There may not even be a trash can next to it, although I could be wrong about that.
Michael, are you talking in Channel Park and it's just a toter that's next to the black can?
There's a can that is on Oakton across from that bus stop at the end of on the north side of the street where the bike path comes in next to Crafty Beaver. There's a something sitting there and it specifically says recyclables, and every time I run by it, I'm like, yeah, right.
Right, but it looks like a garbage can. And the problem with using toters is they're easy to put a lot of stuff in, but it also means people just dump their stuff into it without thinking about it.
Yep.
Yeah, the public facilities things is something I've been bothering Max about for many years. I always send him pictures of all the cool recycling things I see in Canada when I travel. But I don't know, even a place like by the library where people hang out. The library, I mean, it's Village Green, so it's village property, but it's not on the library, but in there, that seems like that would be a good place for something like that.
But didn't they have that recycling monster last year?
Yeah, but that was
or 2 years ago. I guess it must have been 2 years ago.
Nothing was last year. Yeah, but that was cool, but for show, not for collection.
Oh, you could throw cans into his mouth if you were a kid.
Right. Yeah. Other things that waste management, and this is just the compost, the collective resource compost, which is something we worked on for a while to get that approved. That's, as we talked about, that's been in place for over a year now. But now we've got to figure out how to get more than 205 out of 16,000 households. So that's
the linen.
I would like to see it as a,
the linen recycling has worked out pretty well. At least I've used it a couple times.
I think people, it seems really well known. I mean, I know a lot of people don't, I'm sure a lot of people don't know about it, but you know, all around town, I always see orange bags on collection days.
Are they dependable? Because we've put out stuff and it hasn't been collected.
I would say yes, but I've definitely had instances where it's not gotten picked up. So,
Michael, they're very responsive. If you call them, or you can call the village, we essentially just call them. Yeah, I mean, it works out pretty well. If they miss a collection for some reason, if they go pretty fast down those alleys. So if your bag is maybe hidden by your recycling can or something, they might miss it. But they've always been really good about responding to missed collections.
And maybe there's one other way that we can increase also some of the, the signups for collective resource. I was thinking, again, I had been thinking about that recently. Anyhow, that at some point this year / early next year at the latest, I don't know. I mean, obviously it needs to be looked over before it's put out there. So it depends on other schedules as well. But maybe there's an opportunity for me, like to go back and rethink a little bit of the recycling and disposal program brochure and try and fit in something about collective resource, for instance, which I don't think that was in effect at the time that I was working on that. There's sort of limited real estate in that because obviously it's a two-sided sort of trifold brochure, but maybe that will help too, because I was under the impression that that was being included with new resident packets and is available at Village Hall as well. I think it was available in the lobby. So that might help at least somewhat, in promoting the service. I feel like every little bit helps. So maybe that's something to consider.
sure. I mean, anyway, I'd like to at some point see it offered as a service like we offer recycling and garbage. It's something new that isn't in maybe the framework of things that people expect the village to pay for. We expect that you get garbage and you get recycling, although in a lot of municipalities it's not free. You pay for either a flat service or you pay for, depending on the size of the toter that you get. And at some point maybe we can, it's not the popular political thing to do, to charge people for services that you were formerly providing them for free. But one way to get people to really think about these things and realize what they're doing is have them see the cost, because there's no cost if people don't have a cost, they don't think of the other externalities and just do it easy. I'll just throw it in my garbage because I don't have to pay for garbage, but I have to pay for this collective resource. And if we put those things on more equal playing field, then it would be, people have to make better decisions.
I mean, I think that it does seem like in certain parts of the country, there does seem to be these sort of pay as you throw, if you will, kind of systems that are implemented, and that hopefully does get people to reduce waste and think about consumption like you're saying. So I mean,
it's not even in this area. I know Highland Park does. There was some other municipality that I was looking at recently for a work thing, but I know Highland Park has you pay for this side. Maybe it was Winnetka or Glencoe also that you pay there. You can also pay for like concierge service where they drive up to your back door and get it. But they're paying for the service that they get. So you've got to make those decisions on, do I want to make better choices because I don't have to pay for, recycling is often not a charge to them. So if you recycle more and put less things in trash, then you can use a smaller toter and save on taxes or fees, whatever.
I had another thought. So I wonder if, Liz, is it possible to make some sort of promotional flyers and put them at places where it's kind of like the source of the waste. So like at restaurants or at grocery stores, because just building an idea that Olivia had about recycling your medications and promoting awareness at the drugstores, maybe there's a way of promoting awareness at restaurants and grocery stores where we generate, again, kind of the source of the waste. So just a thought.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It took me several days to track down a place where I could recycle all the plastic bags that built up in my trunk during COVID because I couldn't use the paper, the cloth bags. And not all grocery stores have them. Jewel does on Skokie Boulevard. And I just, I put so many in there, but it was great to get rid of them, and they do recycle. So I was wondering if there's some way the village could encourage other merchants to install these recycled bins right there, as Jim was saying, the side of the waste, so that you don't have so many. It's not such a challenge. It's just obvious with perhaps a sign from the village and the commission making it really clear what this is and why you should be doing it. Because if we make it easy, then people are more apt to do it.
Yeah, to be clear, I was talking about on the collective resource side. So the composting of food and kind of targeting the source of the food, groceries and restaurants, and promoting awareness where we're, generating the food. So maybe
yeah, but see, excuse me for interrupting, but if you were taking taking food out from a restaurant, you're taking it home to eat it. You're not going to recycle it while you go there. See, some things don't make sense.
But no, you compost all of your leftover food waste. So the food waste comes from wherever, whether you're cooking it or your takeout.
The containers and things like that, what are you going to do with them? You're not going to bring them back to the restaurant. Or are you?
No, we're talking about the collective resource. Do you know that service?
Mm-mm. No.
Okay. Well, I guess you have to be familiar with the collective resource process and what they're collecting. They're collecting food waste from people's homes.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe we can do some sort of educational campaign like we did with the restaurants a couple years ago with the napkins and the straws, where we put Village of Skokie, created, not advertising, but informational stuff in all these places that Jim's talking about.
And actually, by the way, there is a number related to that idea of bringing containers back to the businesses. There are a number of companies tackling that, of containers, basically collecting reusable containers after you take them home and then reusing them at the businesses. So that's actually something on the horizon. My wife is very interested in that topic right now. So that actually may not be too far off as well, or too far out. That's not a collective resource, but once again, since we're dancing around.
Yeah, and it's just some positive news. Erlene from Collective Resource did say one of the schools in town has been reaching out to her. I think that's huge, to get the kids just used to doing it. Somebody, actually it was Highland Park, gave me the analogy. They said, composting now is really like recycling was in the 90s for those of us that went to school, how it was just ingrained in your head. And this is kind of the next thing that the kids are going to learn, and it's just going to be your solid waste, your recycling, and your composting. And so I think the schools is something we should really look at to try to get that.
Did she say which school it was?
She did. I don't know if I want to call them out right now, but yeah. So I know Evanston schools either have been doing it or doing it, and then this is this is a full Skokie school. It's been talking with her. I don't know what the status is, or if, they're just kind of getting that information. So I think that's just a great way to get the message out for us too.
Yeah, I was just curious because to see how the school's attitude is towards it. A month before the pandemic in our school district, or actually just the school, I don't know about the district, they had started I forget what they called, but a green committee parents and teachers, and it was mostly teachers, but we were talking about, there was myself and another parent who works at a church in town that uses collective resource, about trying to introduce that at the school. That was our early March meeting, and then we never met again. But in schools aren't even eating, serving, well, they're serving food, but they're not to the same extent. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to get our school back on that track eventually, but
And I know
won't be till next year.
Are you familiar with Becky Brodsky? Yeah. Okay. So she's been a champion of that over in the Evanston schools. So, she said you really have to have a monitor there, kind of getting the program rolling. So all of those things with the COVID pandemic right now are just a challenge, right? They're not allowing parents into the lunchrooms. They're using more prepackaged stuff. It's just the timing is right there. But, as a future goal, I think getting into the schools is going to be key.
Yeah, that's definitely, hopefully next year we can pivot back to that.
So the kids go home to their parents and then they, guilt trip them. Not do it at home.
I was just going to ask, well, I think the school thing is a really good idea and a really good place to start, because as you say, I think that's a good way to sort of teach people like from early on and make that just a part of your lifestyle, and hopefully that just continues. So I think that's a huge thing. But I was also thinking, I know that at one point, a number of years ago also, we had somebody come in from, at the time, Jewel was owned by SuperValue, and we actually had somebody come in from SuperValue, from corporate, and they talked a bit about a composting program that I guess, I don't know if it was some or all of their locations were involved in. And I did ask somebody in the store here at one point whether they're still doing that, and it seems like maybe they aren't composting any longer. It wasn't, I didn't think, through the village, but they were doing composting. I think perhaps they're donating some of it, which is also a good thing. Anything that is safe and usable should be donated or composted. I don't know what the current status is for Jewel, but also the other grocery stores. I know we have a number of other places in the village. I know there's like the Village Marketplace. I know there's a Marketplace on Oakton. There's Aldi. There's so do we know what they're doing in terms of food waste? And is there a way to maybe get them on board with composting, whether it is through, I don't know if that might be a little bit much for collective resource to handle or not. I don't know their capacity. And if that's not appropriate for whatever reason, is there a way to encourage them to compost some other way? I don't know what you think.
I don't have that answer at this point. We'd have to research that a bit.
But yeah, I thought that could also be a huge source of kind of potential waste anyway.
Some of the schools in our district have their own gardens. So it'd be interesting to see if any of those schools could integrate this type of program into something like that. All sides of the garden, composting it and putting it in the garden for stuff to grow, the entire cycle. At least 2 in my school district have their own gardens. That's not, I realize it's not collective resource. That would just be composting, but still, composting is composting.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, as a side thing, also, and I keep kind of slipping sideways from collective resource, but I do, somebody said something offhandedly about kids having it as a second nature that they recycle, which may or may not be true. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but I do think we need to step up and continue the reduce and reuse parts of it as well, since clearly the recycling is not a be all and end all for our problems with this right now. Getting back to the reusable bags and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's funny.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with my 6-year-old today about recycling is number 3. Reduce and reuse are 1 and 2, because he's talking about it at school. And we unfortunately have not been able to do a lot of that because people are consuming more, and really got to work hard to bring your reusable bags into stores. But we'll get there, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, I know it's not a particularly popular thing to talk about, but one of the craw that's on them, that gets me is I have a garbage bin that is larger than my recycling bin that gets collected twice a week. And, at the end of the week, a lot of weeks I'm stuffing stuff in the recycling and my garbage bin is empty. I mean, I think that speaks volumes about what the priorities of the village are. I mean, if we really wanted to prioritize reuse and reduction of use of materials, and we could save money, and we could also send a message and not have garbage collected twice a week, and maybe have the recycling bins be larger than the garbage bins.
Yes, I think your opinion here, Charlie, is popular. I know with the brass, it might not be, but
it's kind of a political sacred cow, twice a week. I mean,
Skokie gives me all his.
It's a good thing I'm not running for office, because I would never get elected on that platform.
That's right.
Well, so we're 4 years away from an election, which is the best time to do the most controversial things. So, I've been pushing this once a week collection thing for years. So, you have my ears on that.
Well, maybe we could start with larger recycling bins, because it doesn't happen every time, but frequently I will be at a point where, and I see people in my alley, I go out to the alley and people have, stuff that's adjacent to the recycling bin. They want to recycle it, but it's adjacent, and it sort of spreads around the alley, and it really is discouraging for people, I think.
Every week I take my heaviest child and lift him into the recycling can, and he jumps up and down, and then smashes it down because it's always full. So
My heaviest child is 6'2", so not an option for me.
Okay, so Mike's kid's going to go around and stuff people's recycling bins. Great, Mike, thanks.
He'll stuff me into the recycling bin.
Problem, I was gonna say the problem is solved. Natural sort of solution, compacting it down, and
maybe you got a new business. I'll advise you.
You don't need to send him to college. Have him go around town and do that. All right. Anyways, I think we have some ideas on where we need to go in waste management and everything else. And it's getting late. So.
Well, yeah, it is getting late. I'm sorry to keep this up, but one question I would have also with the once a week garbage collection, assuming it's not a pie in the sky, who knows, whether that would or could ultimately affect people's tax bills in the positive, which might be a selling point. Less, half as many garbage collections, maybe you don't have to pay as much money. You don't have to answer that, but I'm just saying that that's a potential selling point.
Yeah, the last I remember is that Max locked us into a contract. Max, do you want to? We had a several-year contract that you kind of. We're going to blame Max on this. This is Max's fault right here.
Are you trying to get me to make commitment type statements, Charlie? I would never lock you into anything. We have a variety of contracts for a variety of services. Were the village to transition to once a week waste collection versus its current twice, I would think you would expect to see some form of savings. Yes.
Savings which could be potentially applied to paying for a collective resource.
Beyond that, all the ideas you bounced around tonight are obviously all ideas that this commission has bounced around at various meetings before. And Jenny's right. I think there's some level of consistency and thought amongst the commission about some of these ideas, and then there are different thoughts amongst different areas of the community and amongst other boards and other folks in the village about the sacred status of different services and what those service levels need to be. So there's sort of a long history to those discussions. So
Oh, Max, are they hourly workers though? I mean, they have minimum, you have to pay them anyway?
are they what?
The
Repeat.
garbage people, you have to pay them even if they only do it once a week? I mean, the cost, are they getting the same pay or how's it work?
Sure, the village's twice a week garbage collection is provided for the single family component of our community is provided by village public works staff. So yes, those, whether they're picking it up twice a week or once a week. Yeah, I mean, it's that same workforce is going to be providing those collections. So assumedly, if we made some form of service change, there's a bunch of different permutations about what might change, were we to do that, and how we might repackage our services, or what some of those spinoffs might be, or how we would undertake that. So, I mean, there's no just one way to do things. So, so there's no just one answer to, you know, what that cost shift might look like, or what we might do in some of those scenarios. But they've been, I mean, we've looked at those. Over a period of years, you know, every few years we sort of revisit some of those scenarios and what if some of those things, and we look at them, you know, as we go through the budget processes. So, you know, there's different scenarios that we're familiar with, but so we're there to be an interest in us re-looking at those. We can certainly do that.
All right.
Thanks, Max. I think that's helpful to have that explanation of how that works.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it is time to look at the calendar for our next meeting. Which would be May 25th, which is the fourth Tuesday of the month. Okay, Liz, are there any public comments?
We have received none.
Okay. Very interesting. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Rick? Everyone wants to stay a second? Anyone? Andrew?
A second.
All right. So moved or something. Okay, well, we are done then.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
Hey, Liz, got a moment? Hey, Liz, I was wondering, do we have any updates on the emissions listing?
Oh, yeah, I did bug Julian about it. He's our budget officer. He's incredibly busy right now.
Okay.
We're wrapping up a budget, but he said that he had it. He's gonna get it to me. It's just that he's super busy, but yeah, we can get it.
I've been in the exact same boat and everything. Like I haven't even gotten a list of half of the plans I wanted to put in the list. It's just been a little crazy here. Like I was just literally fixing the van's blown out brake line while this meeting was going on. So,
somebody,
yeah. But no, I was just curious, you know. And then
just ran into somebody that they saw you racing last weekend or 2 weekends ago.
Eddie?
What's that?
Was it Eddie?
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yeah, we worked also on the rescue trucks and everything together.
Good.
So no, yeah, I got second in that race. So and then was it you who asked, well, how am I doing it with doing sustainability stuff? I'm actually going to be doing a carbon offset at the end of the year.
Yeah. That offset would cost a little bit of money, huh? Where do you?
No, actually, it's not. It wouldn't even be a couple $100 really from the one place I was doing the calculations with. So it's not that bad.
Are you? Max wanted to know where you raced. Were you up at? Was it Elk?
No, I was up at Blackhawk this weekend. Elkhart for my race won't be up until August. a test here too. I have to see. I haven't driven this car up there yet, so it's a little different just because of sight lines and all that stuff. But no, yeah, Blackhawk this will occur later, and then we'll end up at Joliet at the end of the year. So I don't know if I'm doing anything in Michigan or whatnot and stuff, but so we'll see.
All right, send me race car
But,
video.
oh yeah, I'll send you the links. I actually have a video of the race and everything. The sound got a little unsynced because I'm using an old GoPro, and GoPro segments the videos, so if something gets corrupted, you don't lose everything. They have software to combine it all, and if you don't have a really hardware-oriented computer, it doesn't like it, and I'm like, oh God, just let me post the video, But yeah, no, I got the guy on the last corner in the last lap, so it's a really good clip there. And then I got 3 of them at the start, so. But yeah, and then I thought I'd let you guys know is that I have a second interview with Naperville for their sustainability coordinator position on Thursday.
Really?
Oh, good luck.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks. Well, I'm not gonna get it, but at least I made it to a second one.
There you go. There's that hard-earned confidence.
Chris, I just wanted to
Well,
know,
no, I
you
just
wanted 2 cars racing, so you got second?
yeah. Well, I mean, we'll just have to see. I mean, I don't know. They just said it was a very big list of people that were in it, so I'm just like, okay,
Oh, I was talking about your other
What?
race. You're talking about your job race. I was talking about your other race, your car.
Oh, okay.
When you said you got second place, were there more than 2 cars?
Thanks. I appreciate that. Bravo. No, we had 15 in the class.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, okay. No, that's good. Congratulations. on both.
You don't get a trophy if there's less than 5 or something. So,
All right.
But no, we have our own little sub series and the whole thing and stuff. But yeah, no, I'll send you guys the link if you want of the video and things. So.
Okay.
So yeah, but okay. So yeah, just when we have the mission stuff, just let me know. I'm glad that the greenhouse stuff went out for bidding and things. So that's good to know.
Yeah, well, quotes essentially because it's under 20,000.
Yeah. Was one of the companies the one that Northbrook used? I had such terrible connection half of this time. So.
Yes, so one of them is Pale Blue Dot, and SEAC is another one, and then Delta in Chicago.
Okay, I just want to write that down real quick just so I remember. Is it like CDAK or?
SEAC is, I don't know what the acronym stands for. They're out of Champaign, I believe, with a university.
Oh, okay. Just curious. And then Delta was in Chicago, right?
Yeah, Delta's in Chicago. So.
Okay. All right, sorry for taking up your time.
No, you're good. I'm just live streaming. I'm trying to end the misery for whoever's watching us. Okay.
I think you just close it out and it probably should end, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Okay.